austerity in the US government is now completely out of the door. The Trump Big Beautiful Bill is about to get passed. The DXY, that's the dollar index, is at its weakest point since 2021.
Housecoin is similar. It's like, oh, housing market is a scam. House prices are unaffordable, like one house coin. That's funny.
The Euro USD chart got absolutely raped since the beginning of the year.
The price has always been the utility. Like, nothing has attracted more people into this space than the price. It's not your ZK intent layer. It's not your whatever compression algorithm. It's not your super creative DeFi primitive that will revolutionize finance and RWAs. It's people hitting 100 and 1000x.
It doesn't matter if it's retarded. Half of our industry is retarded. Half of the world economy is retarded consumerism.
I'm bullish. When retail enters, they are gambling and they're looking for the 100x. And that will be in meme coins. No, I'm not buying your shitcoin.
Yes, you are, because it's Joyful July after Jihad June.
You're going to ETHCC to Cannes?
Unfortunately, no. How about you?
No. Dude, everyone who goes there, from like the OG crowd and people I know, literally only go there to have like a little vacation afterwards.
Oh.
They're like, oh, I want to have like South France. Event-wise, no one cares. It's all the same stuff. It's ETHCC, so it's like ETH Denver, you know? No one wants to go, everyone still goes.
And ETH Denver at least is a little more project, app-focused than ETHCC, I think.
Yeah, could be.
Any conferences you still consider worth going to?
I actually, this year, I'm going to go more to the business-focused conferences. So I've been to Token in Dubai. I'm probably going to go to Token to Singapore.
Yeah, I think Singapore would be pretty cool. That's kind of the only one still worth going.
Nice. There's also like...
How about Cosmoworth?
Oh, wow. That's a good one.
Is it still alive?
It's best to leave that uncommented from my side. Let's switch topics real quick. No, there's Breakpoint in Abu Dhabi as well.
Oh, right, yeah.
And then there's also...
In September?
I'm not sure. It could be even later, but like Q4, I think. I'm not sure. And then there's also DevCon, which is in Argentina.
But I think DevCon goes in a similar direction as ETHCC.
I mean, DevCon is the OG developer conference. And then ETHCC and ETH Denver are derivatives of that.
DevCon is relevant for the development side, but I don't think it's relevant for the product side of things. The impact felt in the markets is not that huge.
I think DevCon is as relevant for product and BD as all the others. Like DevCon is not just a developer-focused conference anymore. That's changed. That's changed since, I don't know, Osaka, I guess?
I've only been to the one in Bogota 3 years ago.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I think Osaka was the year before.
Pivoting topics. What do you think about the current state of geopolitics? Is this bullish for coin?
Okay. Hot air rises. That will not change.
Especially in the Iranian bunkers. It has risen quite a bit.
Yeah. So what do I think about the state of geopolitics? It's hilarious. Like Trump thanked Iran for not bombing too much, basically. And then in this other interview, he was like, Israel is dropping bombs, dropping loads of bombs. In fact, when the ceasefire was announced, they dropped all of them. These people have no idea what the fuck they're doing. So, I don't know. I find it hilarious. I don't have any insider information. I try to ignore it, honestly. I think the market doesn't really shake anymore that much. Like, everything is priced in. I think the moment there officially will be peace, I don't know what even needs to happen. It's up only. Like, I feel like, I mean, again, my view of politics is always extremely cynical. I often oversimplify things and have a very cynical viewpoint. So in that sense, it's theater to me, and I enjoy it.
I think this is another good example to drill down into every market participant that it is pretty plus EV to bid geopolitical tensions escalating. Because there's two outcomes: either the world goes to shit, or it's a no-brainer and it de-escalates and there's peace. And if you bought and the world goes to shit, it doesn't matter anyways. If there's peace and you bought, you're gonna be rich. If you didn't buy, you're poor. So I think it's one of the easiest buying opportunities because there's no fundamental reason to be bearish of the asset after or during some geopolitical escalation versus before. Especially when we're going into the realm of crypto, these technologies and these assets trying to be system hedges and offering an alternative financial rail that is only amplified by any additional volatility in the, let's say, real world. So yeah, I think it was another good example for that. Sometimes it's a little bit too early if there are stages of escalation. I think that was the case last year in April when there were initial Iran-Israel tensions. I bought the dip quite heavily and then it went down a little more after that. But in the grand scheme of things, it's pretty plus EV to bid that. I think if there's re-escalation, that only makes it more likely that rates are going to be lowered faster, or maybe both, that there's going to be more government spending in the US. If there's peace, then people have time to worry about their silly little consumerism again, so that's going to stimulate the economy. Either direction we go into, unless we are all getting nuked, it's pretty bullish.
I agree with that, yeah. So which assets are you bidding?
During the dip, I bought BTC, Hype, and Fortcoin. BTC during geopolitical dips, it's the closest asset that can capitalize on these developments because it offers an alternative. And Hype and Fortcoin were mostly momentum plays because these ran up quite heavily before the escalations in the Middle East. So usually with these assets, if there's a quick sell-off, as there was the case last Saturday, I think it was, these usually rebound pretty quickly. And that was the case. So as of now, both of these trades went pretty well.
Nice. What's your take on Hype right now? I've seen a lot of FUD. I've seen a lot of like people posting charts that it's going to go back to like 15, 10 bucks.
I mean, the RR is obviously not the same as it was during the March and April sell-off, down to almost $10. It's at, I think, $40 right now.
Oh, like, yeah, close, 37, 38.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, the upside is not infinite, obviously. I think the closest comparison is BNB. I don't know what the market cap discrepancy is there that is remaining. I don't know if it is going to achieve the market cap of BNB or the FTV, because BNB is largely in the hands of CZ and a lot of Binance-aligned people, as is with Hype, but the team portion of the Hype tokens, I think, is still locked. So they cannot really exert a lot of supply control and liquidity control there. It's a great product. I still like to use it. I like the Hyper EVM. I do think that there are going to be a couple of airdrops happening there. So on the on-chain participant side of things and Protail side of things, besides Solana and the classic ETH place to be, I think Hyper EVM right now, it's a pretty hot floor. So I definitely think it is going to pay off to keep engaging with Hyperliquid and the surrounding apps. But I mean, yeah, latest if we hit $100 with Hype, unless we see a huge liquidity influx in general and large scale all season, we should become a little more wary of taking profit.
I feel like that's mid-curving it a little bit, because I feel like if you would argue that Hype goes to 100, I don't see a reason why it wouldn't go to 400 or 500. Because if you look at the supply, they didn't give anyone supply. It's not even listed on proper sexes because of that. I think the supply is getting thinner and thinner with the buybacks. And as long as they can sustain the revenue, which is questionable always, right? Like Coinbase is launching a perps product. There's like competition coming up. But as long as they can keep up their revenue, I think it will cook from here, honestly.
I just looked it up. It's currently sitting at a 13 billion market cap and an FTV of 40 billion. And BNB is sitting at a 95 billion market cap. So if we use it as a comparative valuation, the $100 for one Hype is definitely still in play. And I do think it's pretty realistic that it's going to hit that this cycle, unless we see everything go to shit and there's no proper bull market this time except for BTC.
Yeah. Good point.
Has your cycle outlook changed in any way?
We're back slightly.
We're in July now, so
yeah.
Some people were very bullish on a joyful June, but it ended in Jihad June, or Jewish June, depending
June,
on how you want to see it.
May and June was always clarification months for what the meta is going to be, like which place will be an accumulation zone and prepare for the next leg up. I think July is the month where we'll see the moves. And I think, maybe my thesis moved 1 or 2 months back from initially like all-time high in August, September, maybe more like September, October. But, if June and August rip, maybe that's still the case. I don't know. It's not that important. I think what's more important is looking at certain on-chain metrics, unrealized gains, unrealized, like Nupal, all these metrics, especially for Bitcoin, I think are a decent indicator. MVRV.
So going into the second half of 25, how are you positioned?
BTC, memes, barbell. That's all. I think BTC Fartcoin is still one of the best barbells this cycle. Hype also as the only altcoin, tech altcoin play. The thing is, your thesis can be right, but you can still mess it up by having the wrong implementation details. I don't think we'll see an alt cycle. I think we'll see rotation to few selected blue chips, such as Hype, such as Fartcoin. I don't think any of these layer 2s or DeFi protocols that are hyped right now will benefit tremendously from the rotation. I don't think there will be a rotation in the first place. So in that sense...
So you think everything that is hot right now will be hot for the remainder of the cycle?
It depends on what... Like, obviously, like if you're looking for the biggest multiples and you're willing to take big bets, you need to be in the trenches and you need to be like, find the next cook, catch it at a million and see it go to like 10, 50, 100 million, obviously. So I don't think I'm talking about that. I'm talking about more conservative. You want to be positioned for a decent multiple for the last leg of the cycle. I think BTC, Hype, Fartcoin. But honestly, that's not even, obviously that's not investment advice. It's just like, I don't have time to optimize that. And I don't know what the optimization even looks like. I just think that BTC, Hype, memes, barbell is probably the way. Fartcoin to me seems to be the best meme coin out there.
Can you steel man your bearishness on DeFi?
They don't need a token, mainly.
I agree, but it's the only vertical via which you can express any bullishness on that thesis.
The moment you are in fee territory, very few protocols justify billion-dollar valuations. Hype, Jupiter, Radium, a few others. I don't know like how the Uniswap numbers look like. There are a few, but 90% of DeFi is not that. So I think it's either priced in or it's overpriced. That's why I much prefer memes where it's not cash flow based. There's no arbitrary vapor utility. It's just like community based. You either believe in it or you don't. And the moment the community stops selling and they supply control 80, 90% of the thing, which is not difficult, to be honest with you, there's only like 10, 20% for grabs in the liquidity pools. And we all know what happens, right? So it's very easy. These token structures favor traders a lot, and it's obviously dangerous for investors. But yeah, that's my bearishness on DeFi. It's like I'm bearish on the tech utility token narrative in general. Take all the Polkadot chains, take all the Cosmos chains, take all the Ethereum layer 2s, all the same for me.
The DeFi tokens, they don't try to be utility. Some of them try to be equity. Some of them try to be receiving cash flows, sort of like a bond token, but with a volatile underlying. Some of them try to, in that case, then mimic the dynamics of a dividend stocks, which I don't necessarily think makes sense at the stage these companies are usually in. But if it's highly profitable, at least in the short to midterm, it can capitalize on some gains.
It's not about profitability. It's about what valuation methodology do you take into account, right? SPX 6900 wants to flip the stock market. Very memeable, very straightforward. There's no ceiling, basically. There is a ceiling, but it's extremely high, trillion. For any of those DeFi protocols, if you look at the revenue or cash flows, there is a valuation which is usually below the current market cap of the token. So you either switch to narrative, which we've had in the last cycle, DeFi narratives, and I don't think we'll see that again. So I'm not necessarily too bearish. It's just like, this is the meme coin cycle, I would say.
I would agree to some extent. The mimetic drivers of value are still relevant. And I would also say that they're relevant for DeFi tokens. There's nobody who is just valuing these things based on cash flows. Some of them you cannot even value based on cash flows. For example, the Uni token, it doesn't receive anything of the revenues. And I think in these cases it's not looking too well. Also because there's no legal construct as an underlying that would give the token holders any rights that an equity holder in traditional finance has. If you're able to fix that, you can set the cash flow aspect to the side for a few more years in the case of most protocols. And I still think that some people would want to have exposure to these tokens and that could at least maintain the value. However, we're finally seeing a couple of new innovations in DeFi that are starting to manifest. We've had in the last year a lot of stuff going on with Pendle and with Fluid in terms of yield trading and capital efficiency. So I think these are genuinely improving the DeFi user experience. Now we have more and more under collateralized lending protocols again, like FreeJane. We have more RWA integrations directly into DeFi with stuff like Syrup, formerly Maple. And again, probably you do not have the same multiples as finding Fartcoin at 10 million a couple of months ago. But I do think that especially for the semi-institutional and institutional players and liquid funds, these DeFi tokens may become more interesting again in the next couple of months. And I think that if we see anything that resembles an alt season, these are likely going to perform well, at least in one of the rotation legs.
The question is, who are these institutions going to sell the tokens to?
Retail, because right now I think it's easier to convince people of the financial and fintech innovation going on in crypto than about getting them excited for meme coins.
I disagree.
Right now, I think meme coins are down in the dumpster still. Like nobody is excited to get into the trenches.
So
Everybody who went in with either the election outcome in November and then the meme season in November, December 24, or with it all peaking with the Trump and Melania coins, every single one of these people got wrecked. With the traditional alts, people have been out of that game for 2 to 3 years. So people have already forgot. And with stuff like Circle happening, with all of these crypto treasury companies you see in TradFi, with crypto integrations into Robinhood, into Stripe, it's much easier to convince a marginal entrant into the crypto markets, okay, there's at least some possibility this whole financial innovation thing is going to be cool, and like go buy some of these DeFi coins. Again, not the same multiple upside for sure as with meme coins, but I think on an absolute level, it's easier to get people in there right now.
No one is going to buy DeFi coins. And the main reason for that is we all know about the overproduction of tokens. So like you have no idea what to buy. In 2014, 2015, there were like 20 tokens to buy. Last cycle, you had like 200 tokens to buy. This cycle, you have like 5,000 tokens to buy, right? So that's one problem. But the other problem is the main thing in the casino that drives speculation and retail money is the idea of getting rich. And this is usually screenshots, Twitter posts of people who had like their 100x. That's what's attracting retail capital. No DeFi project will have enough of a multiple and gave retail a fair enough of a chance to be able to do that. However, meme coins is where that happens. So I think when retail enters, they are gambling and they're looking for the 100x, and that will be in meme coins. It may not be in Fartcoin, but it will be in Fart House or whatever, chill fart. Whatever.
I mean, obviously not in Fartcoin because it's already sitting
Yes.
at above $1 billion. But if you look at the trenches over the last 6 months, there hasn't been a single one of these 100x screenshots. I mean, the big runners that are being discussed in the trenches, which I am as someone who's somewhat involved, but not day-to-day involved in meme coin trenching, sees is Housecoin and Useless. These are the only ones that occasionally get mentioned on the timeline. Yeah, but these are not even comparable to the valuations you were able to achieve just 6 months ago or in Q4.
But it's not done yet. They're still running.
Yes, but you need to have one of these run to 1 billion to convince retail to get back into the game.
And that will happen, in my opinion.
Do you see any industry catalyst, or do you think it's just going to be driven by Max?
It's going to be driven by price. That's the only catalyst. The main catalyst for crypto has always been price and people getting rich. And I think trying to interpret any more sense into that is just overcomplicating it. So the moment we'll see a 500 million candle on the monthly for Housecoin or whatever, Fartcoin, that's when retail will get interested again.
Yes, but what is going to be the trigger that's going to cause that 500?
Some whale buying.
But there needs to be a wealth effect before. There needs to be new money inflow into the meme coin ecosystem. Do you think maybe the Pump.Fun TGE could be that event?
So the Pump.Fun ICO TGE is interesting. It could be that, although I think it's rather a liquidity sink. I don't know. I'm not sure, to be honest with you. But yes, something like that. And I mean, have you seen the Moonshot create a launchpad also?
I've seen that it launched, but I haven't tried it out.
So Launchpad hype is still in play, and it has its like 2 weeks of fame or whatever. I think they're probably going to have their runner. But to your point, like if you are in the trenches, you had multiple 100x opportunities in the last couple of weeks. You just mentioned Useless was one of them. I think Chillhouse, Housecoin, Unstable Coin. There's a few others. Like I personally know people who bought these tokens sub $1 million and they're up like 20, 30x. Mm-hmm. So sure, it's not 100x yet, but it will be like those people will post 100x screenshots very soon. But what I told you earlier before we started recording, if you are detached from the trenches and you just come in when it's risk on, you're too late.
Oh.
So that's why I'm bullish still. Me being bullish on meme coins doesn't really mean I'm bearish or bullish on DeFi. I just don't care. I don't care. I care about the innovation and the product, but I'm not interested enough in following which primitive will succeed. I'll just wait for it to succeed. And then I will be late to that thing or token. But I think retail-wise, it is the full meme coin cycle. And I just don't see anything else.
So still full Murad season.
Full Murad, man. SPX 6900 GIP.
Do you have a rough estimate how many people right now are active in the trenches?
No, but less than 1 million.
I would estimate it to be vastly below that. I would say for DeFi, it's maybe 10,000.
For DeFi, it's less though. Max. For DeFi, it's less. For DeFi, it's 10 to 20K. For meme coins, I think it's like 100 to 250K.
You think it's 10x more?
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, we're not talking about some 16-year-old high school kid who's gambling with $3.50 to his name.
I'm not talking about, you use Jupiter or you use the DEX, you're a DeFi user. Then every meme coin trader is DeFi user. I'm talking about someone who deliberately provides LP, invests into DeFi tokens, does yield farming, versus people who click and trade memes. I think it's an order of magnitude.
Interesting if it's 10x the user size, but the trenches have not been able to catapult anything new above 60, 70 million market cap
Useless.
In the last. How much is Useless now?
190.
So that's been the only 9-digit runner in the last 6 months, right?
No. In the last 6 months, Housecoin hit 120 mil. I mean, there's a couple Cabal plays which are not worth mentioning because no one knows.
Oh, this one that got pumped like Aura. 200. Yeah.
Aura Farm is interesting.
Is that related to Aura?
I have no idea. It's kind of a cool concept though.
So is it just like the Gen Z aura farming
Yes.
meme?
Yes. So, this is the thing. Like, when you hear about it running to 9 figures, it's too late. So, if you want to capitalize on that, you have to buy the next 9-figure runner today at 10, 15 million. You're not going to catch it at sub million again, right? So, that's the thing. Like, I think this is the misconception why I'm super bullish, because I have been in the trenches nonstop and, was kind of able to catch some of these. And it's kind of rinse repeat. It's like always the same thing. Like the moment we see a God candle and people print, we have a new inflow of capital. We have redistribution because OGs sell some, take profits. And then there's a pullback and we enter accumulation again until the next God candle. So, for example, like one super obvious play for me is Housecoin. Like sitting at 20 million, one of the best narratives. Like to me, it's so clear that we're going to see a God candle very soon. And that God candle, I think it will be a clean 10x, to be honest with you. I think it'll be a clean 20 to 200 million candle. And I don't know if weekly, but monthly for sure.
Yeah, I mean, in a month, you can definitely see that type of run up. Yeah. If you were talking about a daily candle,
no,
I would have called it a little delusional, but
no.
I think even in a week, it's very well. If we even resemble somewhat what we've seen in late Q1 24 or late Q4 24, then that should be easily possible.
In a daily candle, it's also possible, but I would probably take profits if that would happen, because the crazier and the kind of shorter the run up, the crazier and longer the pullback. And that's the reason, I guess, why it pulled back so hard, because I think it pumped from 13 million to 120, like a clean 10x after Ansem shielded and, minus 85, 90% retrace. And now it's holding. I know a lot of people accumulating. Yeah, like bullish.
But with these meme coins, if you're active in the trenches and you try to find these things at 5 million, at 10 million, what's your procedure to think, okay, this one is likely to get picked up by an Ansem or by a Unipix, the bonk guy? I would argue that, and you kind of confirmed that in your last sentence, that the main reason why Housecoin ran to 120 million is because Ansem started shilling it.
After with the first real coin that he shilled.
And I would argue same goes for Useless. The main reason it went up to, I don't know, 60, 70 or 90 million is because the bonk guy, Unipix, is nonstop shilling it.
I mean, Useless is different, right? Useless was, I think, first popularized by Lexapro, who also was early and big on Housecoin and shilled Housecoin. Gained a lot of traction and then shilled Useless. And then the bonk guy picked it up because it's a bonk launchpad token. And I think their interest is in having bonk token runners. They want to have a bonk token $1 billion runner. That's their goal. Because that legitimizes bonk as a real alternative to pump fund for new meme coin launches. And obviously we know how they make money via fees. So to me, it's like a calculated play. I'm less bullish on it because the game plan is straightforward. Sometimes the simplest plays work though. Like sometimes, don't overcomplicate. They need $1 billion runner. Useless is probably it. Or Hosiko, the cat.
I haven't heard of that at all.
I mean, it peaked at like 30 million, then it dropped down. I don't know where it sits today, but I think it's like a decent thing. But long story short, Bonkcoin needs $1 billion runner if they want to compete with PumpFun. And so does Moonshot, and so does Believe app or any other launchpad for that matter.
Besides the meme trenches, do you think that any other altcoin narrative is going to have its small little run-up in season this time? Maybe the entire AI X crypto thing?
No, that already happened. That's over.
So you think with the agents meta in December that peaked?
I mean, with the content creation agents, yes. Whether there's kind of a newer meta which focuses on some deeper form of AI integration, I don't know. I don't see it. I wouldn't bet on it. I don't know.
I think it's worth paying a little bit attention to it and try to like build a small index of coins there with only a very low percentage of your portfolio. Because I could see a world where if we see massive QE, quantitative easing, massive liquidity influx, and people still do not have any other vehicle than NVIDIA to bet on AI. And even with NVIDIA, you can only bet on the infrastructure. You cannot really bet on any AI application. And that could propel the whole crypto X AI stuff forward. If that happens, I would be extremely opportunistic with these coins. I do not think that any of them are able to build long-term moats. At least the vast majority of them is not going to be able to do that. But I could see them have a short-lived but very violent run upwards.
Yeah, I think that's a possibility. I stay in my lane, moisturized, flourished. Like I know what works for me. I know how to spot them, and I'm not chasing the next meta because I can't. I'm not the first one to a new meta. I'm usually like earlier than mainstream, like way earlier. But I think being the first one, you basically have to meme the new meta into existence, which is a different type of effort, and it's a different type of like seeing where things move and where motion is. I'm not good at that. But for example, the meme coin meta to me was clear since like early last year.
Do you have any opinion on the launch of these crypto treasury companies, all these MicroStrategy copycats? Is that something that you even witness and notice, or?
So that's something that Udi spoke a lot about, I think, in his interview with the Thread guy, where I caught some of it. It doesn't surprise me. It was just a matter of time. I was like, why are there not more MicroStrategies? Like the strategy works extremely well. Why aren't like other companies copy trade them basically? Yeah. So it's not a surprise. I don't think it has some, like, I don't know. I've always been an on-chain user. I think it's targeting a different user type.
It's probably still relevant for us as on-chain participants, because if this trend continues, then we finally get to a point where we have institutionals and TradFi vehicles as our exit liquidity.
But they won't touch meme coins.
No, they won't. But in order to get another meme coin season, we need to create an on-chain wealth effect. And the two coins that are most critical for that are ETH and SOL. CT, Crypto Twitter, and most of the trenches participants are constantly underweight BTC. All the DeFi people, all the OGs, they have a huge bag of ETH. All the meme coin people often have a large bag of SOL. And if we now have these companies that are raising these large treasuries to ape into these large coins, that creates a wealth effect. The on-chain participants can sell their holdings, and then it trickles down into the lower cap altcoins. So I think it's still a relevant trend for the on-chain economy. But on that note, I think that MicroStrategy has often been discussed as becoming the big tail risk of this cycle, sort of the Luna or the FTX of life.
I couldn't agree more. I actually, again, I don't know enough about the corporate structure of MicroStrategy, but somehow it wouldn't surprise me. Like the idea of Michael Saylor going to jail because of some fuck up they did behind the scenes would not surprise me. I complete dumb speculation. It's just like, it would be a funny outcome.
The craziest timeline would be the SEC or some other US government agency trying to imprison Saylor, and then the US government just seizes all the BTC held by MSTR, and they turn that into the US BTC strategic reserve.
The one thing that would be funnier if they lose it in a boating accident. As Saylor has been dropping that a few times. Look, I think he has high conviction.
All of these Bitcoin were to be lost, that would be so insanely bullish. Because it would essentially eliminate any of these BTC ever touching the market again. But I guess that they use tons of custodians. I think they use Coinbase custody, so the probability of his BTC getting lost is very low.
How much does he own again? 2.5%?
I think a little more by now even.
So
I think
crazy.
he's up to 3% by now.
That's so great.
Either like in the 290s or low case of BTC. It's an insane amount of money. But on the other hand, I think what is more interesting to monitor is all of these copycats, because MicroStrategy, because they've been doing it for years now and they are very clever with all of their duration spreads and whatever, they are reasonably safe. You'd need to have BTC drop down to probably below 50K and stay there for multiple years for MicroStrategy to become endangered. What is more interesting to see is many of these copycats, which are often very small scale businesses which do not even have any functioning business model anymore. The only thing that there's to them is that they are publicly listed in some random country, and now they are starting to raise huge treasuries to buy up BTC, ETH, Sol, or some even hype. I think there was I don't know if it was a CoinDesk or Cointelegraph or some crypto media outlet article about like some struggling Spanish coffee chain trying to raise a 1 billion treasury to buy BTC. And if you looked up the coffee chain, they had 6 locations. It's like some Berlin kebab place trying to get listed at the Frankfurt Stock Exchange. I just starting to like raise $1 billion in BTC. I mean, they probably make their revenue right now is $1 million or maybe even below that, and these companies are starting to just ape into crypto. It's quite hilarious.
That is hilarious. I'm not gonna lie. I should probably hit up my cousins and pitch them that business opportunity and get a juicy advisor allocation. I mean, that is honestly like, that scares me. That is top signal. You know, some part of me wants the cycle to end so I can like go back to my routine in peace without like this high cortisol maxing, no sleep season, FOMOing into everything. Not even like meme coins or anything, just like this constant state of, oh my God, we're gonna like, and I mean, this coffee shop example you just gave me is just like so ridiculous that I think the cycle needs to end. So that stuff needs to stop right away.
I can't believe in the cycle end because I have not become rich off the cycle yet.
What's the number that you would need to hit to be like, oh, like that's a good cycle outcome?
From where I am right now, optimistically,
not from where you are right now. Generally, someone who is in crypto, what do you think is a number for the average person to hit where they're like, oh, I made it this cycle?
It really depends where you're starting out from. If you're already lower 8 digits, you probably need to hit a 2x and you're pretty happy. It also depends on your age group.
Lower 8 figures?
I mean, if you're lower 8 figures and you make it from 10 to 20 million, most people, at least objectively, should be pretty content with the outcome.
Yeah.
Most of them are not, because
most people start with mid 3 figures.
Because the path from 3 to 8 figures, you become so insanely mentally deranged and autistic, then you're going to view your little 2x as a pathetic outcome. So I don't think that these people are going to be happy. On the other hand, some of them with these numbers completely move to perps, so their standard allocation is USD only, and they only measure their returns in USD, and they don't have a long-term interest in any of these assets anymore. So some of them then become a little more, okay, did I just take this trade well versus this whole, did I make it in the cycle perspective? I think for the people starting out with, let's say, 5,000, 10,000, if they hit 50 to 100,000, so a 10x, I guess most of them would be pretty happy, pretty ecstatic. But in that range, I would argue that very few are able to take profit, because it also depends on the age. If you are some mid-40-year-old corporate guy who has a house and maybe some apartment as an investment and maybe a stock portfolio, and you only view crypto as a small allocation of your portfolio, you're not rich, but you're decently well off. that hits completely different than if you are straight out of high school.
Yeah.
You take all of your savings, yeet it into Chill House, and then Chill House 10x's from here. I doubt that the Chill House guy is going to be able to take profit because you're so overwhelmed by this sudden influx of wealth and this money you have never seen in your life before.
So what are your thoughts on Chill House?
No, I mean, to be honest, Chill House, I think, is one of the few outliers because it has taken the house coin, the chill guy, like all of these meme coin metas, it has taken them on another level of abstraction that is suddenly becoming more fun for all the like Blockworks research people again and like the sort of pseudo intellectuals of crypto Twitter, because it takes the whole meme coin meta ad absurdum.
That is true.
So these people, which I am around a lot, all of them are making fun of Chill House, and I think many of them hold Chill House. So that could be one that, at least makes it to upper 8 digits or lower 9.
Exactly. It's a CT meta.
Yeah,
I think
very internal.
And I think like what people need to, or like my suggestion for these plays would be, Chill House can never be the next fart coin because mainstream doesn't dare to like catch up on the lore of Chill. They didn't understand like, what's Chill House. Fart coin is like, oh, it's a fart coin, hot air rises, that's it, right? Like 1 minute pitch. I actually think house coin is similar. It's like, oh, housing market is a scam. House prices are unaffordable. Like one house coin. That's funny. Chill House is like, for me, it's hilarious. And I own Zero. I've been shilling it in all my groups among thoughts on Chill House all the time. It's like a CT thing, but like you said, I think like 8-figure, low 9-figure is the ceiling, which is still a decent 10x opportunity from here. But I wanted to comment on your multiple thing. So, one good strategy I think for anyone is like take the amount what you started with, multiply it by 20, and just manifest taking profits slightly below it, like once you hit like a 17, 18x. Because I think
the amount of people that is going to
zero
a 17x is 0.1 to 0.5% of the people who are entering now.
I mean, that's always the case though.
Yeah.
Like then 99% will always lose money.
0.1% who are on paper hitting a 17x.
Yeah.
Maybe 5% of them are going to be able to take profit.
But that's the game, and like that's the casino. That's the game. It's literally a massive MMORPG where only the best 0.1% are going to win.
No, I agree, but then your advice doesn't really work because it doesn't apply to 99.9% of people.
I mean, it doesn't apply because people will rotate into random shit. But I think, for example, now Chill House went up quite a bit, but when it was at like 3, 4, or 5 million and you would have bought it, I think a 17x from that would have been very realistic. So just buying that, holding, not doing anything. Once it hits like 80, 90 million, you just sell. I think would have been in the possibility realm. But yeah, I do agree with you.
But nobody's full porting Chill House. And it wouldn't be prudent to do.
I know some people who almost full ported. All right. State of the trenches. No, I think we are in risk on mode again. We're transitioning to risk on mode. And that's why like the trenches, I think, like transcended geopolitical theater. I think like trenches are heating up again and still max extract. But there are some interesting things.
I still don't think we are in risk on mode.
Slowly getting there.
Right now, but for the first time in around 3 to 4 months, you can make a compelling case for risk on again. Before that, it was very, very uncertain. Then it was, at least for me, a period of time where I felt very cynical about the product side of crypto. Not necessarily bearish on asset prices, but it all felt so stupid, so unnecessary. There wasn't any genuine innovation. And I wouldn't say this has been fixed completely by now. But the stuff that you are seeing, or that I am seeing, it's mostly happening in the speculation and financial realm. And with liquidity picking up again, these things become useful in the sense of capitalizing on more of the inflowing money. And that makes them generate revenue. I mean, that's what is used to judge the utility or the product market fit of any product and any business. So the utility gets memed into existence. But yeah, I mean, fundamental misalignments in crypto and the challenges they still exist have not been solved yet. Yeah.
I mean, as him says it best, the price is the utility. It's like people complicate things, and I don't want to like dumb it down to just a casino. It's just if you put the idealism away and you kind of look at how these cycles, unfortunately, but that's the realization I came to, worked, is the price has always been the utility. Like nothing has attracted more people into this space than the price. It's not your ZK intent layer. It's not your whatever compression algorithm. It's not your super creative DeFi primitive that will revolutionize finance and RWAs. It's literally people hitting 100 and 1000x. As unfortunate as that is, if it's kind of easier to navigate and it's easier to focus on community. I honestly think a lot of these projects that have raised on billion-dollar valuations, SAFTs and convertibles will never ever make it and launch. I think we're going to see a lot of like write-downs to zero. I mean, I'm already experiencing some of that myself with some checks I wrote. Not all of them, like some did well. But again, like retail is not buying technology anymore.
There was another funny screenshot from crypto Twitter I saw in some chat where some guy was a seed investor into whatever L2 or L1, and they launched the testnet of the chain after 1.5 years. Just a testnet, not even mainnet. And after 7 days, they shut it down because they said like, oh yeah, something isn't working. We have to completely re-architect the thing. And he is now writing his entire seed investment to zero.
Yeah. On the other hand, I see a lot of like vibe-coded protocols with fake testnets and fake testnet transactions. You can clearly see that things are botted at close to $1 billion valuation. And I'm like, this is not going to end well. I don't want to name names. I think everyone knows what I'm talking about. Because everyone, including like angel investors, including VCs at this point, got burned by them, I think people will still go to the casino and gamble. It's just like, do you go to the slot machine or do you try a more informed bet where you at least have a chance for making it, even though the chances are low? And I think like, yeah, most of these, again, so this is what most people, so this is what I want most people to not confuse, right? I believe in technology. I'm bullish technology. We need new primitives. We need innovation, period. We don't need billion-dollar tokens attached to these. That's my only point.
We don't need them inherently, but it's the only way to express your bullishness on the underlying tech. If you look at the development of the world, energy should become more and more commoditized. The marginal cost per unit of energy should go to zero. It's not because it's a politicized industry, yada, 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 but in theory, it should go to zero. Similar goes for the cost of compute, because that's a derivative of energy. And with the rise of AI and large language models, the marginal cost of code and technology and software also goes to zero. So it's all going to be a game of decreasing margins. And the only thing that is going to be remaining relevant is the cultural, the community, the network aspect. And these networks, these cultures, these communities, these are captured in certain infrastructure environments. And you kind of want to bet on these things, even though they might not be justified in their valuations purely through cash flows. Because otherwise, if we really think it to the logical conclusion, there will not be any other assets left in that sense if the cost of everything approximates zero.
But even if that holds true, which I think there's a lot of truth to that, you're competing with other communities that I think are much stronger. So if you say, hey, like the value of these things is not just a tech, but it's a community, it's the pricing of the bullishness of this thing, you're still competing with Fartcoin and with Housecoin and with whatever useless. And I think
No, that was regarding crypto as a whole. Because I would say that in relation to other industries, the community in crypto is still incredibly cultish. Just the fact that people are getting hyped up by some corporate executive mentioning the word stablecoins or blockchain, and everybody's like, yeah, the CFO of Stripe used stablecoin at minute 14:58 in this annual speech, whatever, or on some footnote in page 69 of their annual shareholders report. People are still getting hyped up by all of this stuff, which you don't see in any other industry.
You know how you can capitalize the value capture of stablecoins?
How would you do it?
Buy unstable coin. Volatility is the utility. Very unstable.
To be frank, that could be a valid thesis, because there's
so retarded.
I mean, it doesn't matter if it's retarded. Half of our industry is retarded. Half of the world economy is retarded consumerism.
I'm bullish.
Me too.
Awesome.
Do you want to conclude with a brief outlook for the remainder of 2025?
This is the beginning of the last leg risk on cycle. BTC, hype, meme coin, barbells are the play. BTC and hype is relatively clear. On the meme coin side, more people will get it wrong than right. I think in order to get it right, bid the blue chips that are already outperforming the rest of the market, even though you'll have less multiples, but it's a much safer play, and you'll still have more multiples than investing into majors. I also think we will peak some point this year.
I largely agree. I mean, on the macro side of things, it has become much more likely that we are going to see risk-on behavior in the markets for the second half of this year. Austerity in the US government is now completely out of the door. The Trump Big Beautiful Bill is about to get passed. I think it already passed the Senate, and now it has to go to the House. The DXY, that's the dollar index, is at its weakest point since 2021. The Euro USD chart got absolutely raped since the beginning of the year. One unfortunate thing for the Europe-based DeFi people is that most of us denominate our port in USD stablecoins, and we lost 15% since the beginning of the year, and no DeFi stablecoin yield can outcompete that. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to continue that way, also because the Euro doesn't have a lot of structural bullish things in terms of currency strength to it either. Yeah, the macro signs are pointing towards risk-on behavior, even though the Nasdaq and S&P are already at its all-time highs. And I think it is plus EV to engage in the on-chain economy, to keep clicking for some airdrops again, gamble a little bit in the trenches, have some exposure to the majors. If we don't see the expected bull market, we might decline by 30 to 50%. If we see it, I guess it's reasonable to expect a 3 to 5x in here, depending on how you're positioned. And if we just say we give each scenario 50% odds, it's very plus EV to participate.
3 to 4, 3 to 5x is FUD, 17x right now.
Gotta dream bigger.
What's your top peak signal?
That's a good question. It's hard to pinpoint to anything because Trump, the officially most powerful individual on planet Earth, launching a coin in his name is kind of hard to beat. I don't think that it would be
more like personal.
I mean, if it's really on a personal level, not on an industry level, probably some normie friends asking me what stuff they should buy, or maybe if my family members suddenly start to respect my profession in the cryptocurrency industry. There are a few who have been very cynical about it in the last years. I think if they were suddenly like, maybe there is something to this, maybe I should also buy some, that's probably a pretty big top signal there.
So personal to me, it's family. Like when I get messages from certain people that have nothing to do with computers, that's been a very solid top signal in the last couple of cycles. Otherwise, Trump, I agree with, but that's the equivalent of like seeing a $10 billion market cap candle within a day or two, which happened in Trump, right? I think the moment we see that, you should sell. 50% at least.
I personally dislike these family and friends type of top signals because usually they are not statistically significant. And it's so random, depending on how your friend group is positioned, depending on their media diet, their profession, etc.
Wait, there's a huge difference between family and friends, though. Friends, for me, are not a top signal. Family, on the other hand, in my case, wide is solid top signal.
But I mean, how many family members do you have which potentially ask you about crypto? And when would you say,
1,000.
Okay, so does it have to be 1 or does it have to be 500 to be
3 to 5.
Okay.
Probably the same ones like last.
What are you gonna chill them? Chill house?
Chill house for sure. No, so I shouldn't say this, I guess, but like I may or may not made the mistake of shilling people stuff in my first cycle, which was, I don't know, 8-9 years ago. And oh boy, the DMs I got when we entered the bear market and no one took profits, and it took them like a full. Luckily, I've only shilled them ETH and some like ERC20
Well, I mean, ETH is bad enough if they bought the peak of.
It's a stable coin. It's like at 2.5K forever. I don't know if you've seen the Beeple art, the turtle. But no, like in the next cycle when it recovered, they made their investment back. And I was like, by the way, it's back at the price. Because they forgot, they logged. Dude, some even like forgot their Poloniex password, and they had to like go through the recovery process because Tron purchased it, and I had to help them get their funds out, and then they found 7 ETH and were super happy, blah blah blah. Funny stories like that. But yeah, I would never do that again. I would never show them anything, not even BTC hype, Fartcoin, Barbell. No, never.
And
I literally reject shilling people anything these days.
In 2021, the summer, when we saw the summer dip, I tried to explain MakerDAO to my grandma.
Wow. To your grandma, dude. That's like, I don't know.
After some time, she just sent me 200 euros and told me to invest it. It probably got absolutely decimated in some KuCoin or Gate.io shitter.
Wow. That's wild insights. That was a good one. Thanks, Max.
Was great catching up. See you next week.
Talk to you next time. Ciao.